We are in the month of madness, and to help us manage the madness that we are in, Jam and I, we're bringing in a heavy hitter, one of the brightest young minds in the draft Twitter space. He is all over the place. Latif Love is going to join the show to help Jam and I talk about some prospects that, to be honest with you, we just haven't dove into in a while. So, Jam, how we feeling?
Excited to talk to Latif. We have a great show lined up.
All right, without further ado, let's rock. We are live here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show, here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We are also on your podcast player of choice. I'm Stephen Gillaspie, joined as always by my co-host Jam Boozer Hines. Jam, what's good, man? How we feeling?
Fantastic. As we mentioned at the top of the show, have Latif on, man. Like, very excited as we in the March, winding down the season. You know, it's go time right now.
It is go time indeed. So without further ado, let's give our guest a proper intro. Latif Love, one of the brightest young minds in the space. He writes for the Love My Takes Substack. He is a frequent guest on the Draft Junkie podcast with James Barlow, friend of the program here, co-editor in chief of the Bradley Scout. He is one quarter of the Debate Room pod. He covers the Missouri Valley Conference for mid-major ball. And he's also a contributor to Draft Digest. Latif, what's good, man? How we feeling?
I'm doing good. Been a great day. Bradley won the last game of the regular season, so
let's go.
Life is great right now. Honestly, I appreciate you guys for having me up here. No Ceilings has been a publication I've read since I've been into scouting. Before I got into really scouting, you guys have been like the standard for scouting for a few years now. So definitely a great opportunity to be up here, and I definitely appreciate you guys for having me, and just appreciate how you guys interact with the community. It's like pretty selfless, I think, and like you guys don't get too big for what you guys have accomplished. You know, partnerships with the NBA. I know you guys are tapped in with like front offices and stuff like that, and the fact that you guys still interact with the community and still are so like level-headed and down to earth is something I really appreciate for sure.
Jam, I'm gonna get a big head if I say anything, man. What do you got to say about Latif's kind words right there?
Latif, too kind, man. Like, I know Stephen feels the same way. I don't want to speak too much for everyone else, but I know they echo the similar sentiments. But that's the way we want to do it, man. Like, we want to grow all of this together. It's not about being selfish, like you said. It's about being selfless, and that's the way we want to continue to carry it. And as we continue to take No Ceilings to the heights that we want it to go.
Yeah, man. What's our guy Corey told above No Ceiling say, Jam? A rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all point each other to each other's work, and that's how we all get better. And Latif, I wasn't just blowing smoke at the top. And for the listeners out there, I genuinely do feel like you were one of the brightest young minds in the space, because you are a perfect blend of, listen, you get analytical, nerdy with it, as you said in your most recent piece with Darius Acuff Jr. I read that today. It was fantastic read, Woo Pig Sooie. You do a great job of balancing that in film, and something that Jam and I say quite frequently here on the show, and that's why we wanted to have Finn Vandergriff of the Double Bonus Pod on, is like, it doesn't have to be one or the other, like you got to use it. And Jam, how do you put it? Scouting is a concert of
the eyes, the ears, and the numbers in that order. Yeah.
That's it. All right, Latif, man. So with us bringing you on, we wanted to bring you on because we appreciate the hard work that you've been doing, and we wanted to offer you a little bit of room here for people to get to know you a little bit. So you mentioned just a moment ago that you've been following No Ceiling since you've been scouting, and that kind of leads me into the first question that we want to dive into, man. Like, how long have you been doing this public-facing work, and kind of what got you into it, man?
I mean, I've been watching basketball my whole life. I played basketball up until my sophomore year.
Okay, stop. What position?
I was going to ask the same thing.
Okay, Jam, I know you're a hooper too.
Yeah, I play point guard. I'm pretty biased towards point guard. That's my favorite player to evaluate. I know the most about what they're trying to do. Center and big men are more difficult evaluation. But I've been watching basketball, playing basketball all my life. And I realized pretty quickly, not going to the NBA or anything like that. So I figured out like, okay, I love writing. I'm a sports communication and journalism major in my senior year right now at Bradley. So about to graduate.
That's
And I
awesome.
love
Congratulations.
writing. I love writing. I love watching basketball. So I just combined the two. I love watching football too. So I'm just a sports guy in general. But I've been tapped into like the NBA draft forever. I just was never this tapped in. Like I didn't know what Bartovic was, didn't know what synergy was. I was just catching a game when I can catch a game. I grew up on the Ball is Life, all that era of watching basketball. Like LaMelo was big when I was younger, like all those guys. So just watching those guys. Lonzo was my favorite player.
Okay.
I was still high. I was really high on him in his draft class. Obviously,
Same here.
Yeah, really love Markelle Fultz, Jason Tatum. Like that's when I grew up watching those draft classes. I would say I was still relatively like a casual viewer, a casual evaluator, probably all the way up until 2024, 2020, maybe even last year in terms of like where I am now, the process I have now, and how in depth I go now. I was nowhere near there at least even 18 months ago. Getting into the numbers more and getting access to more film, and building my platform on Twitter it's made me want to pour more work into myself. I wanted to start my Substack for a long time, and I started it finally in August, and it's grown to 120 subscribers right now. So I'm very blessed. I appreciate everybody to read my work. I put a lot of work into it. I can't produce as much as I want right now because of school. I got a part-time job too. And like you listen all of that stuff that I do. Like it's way too much on my plate. Honestly. I wish I had more time to do a lot of stuff. Because the problem I run into is I have so many ideas, but just not enough time to get it done. So I would say I've been public like scouting probably the last 2 years, and just my love for basketball, my love for evaluating talent and watching the game really got me into it. And then platforms like No Ceilings and Spinrilla, I would probably just butcher his
Spinella,
name.
yeah, Adam.
Yes. Those guys, Vicenci, like those guys that got me into to wanting to talk about the NBA draft, get into writing about the NBA draft. Also, always have to shout out Finn. That was a great episode from you guys. I think I talked about it on Twitter, but again, I appreciate you guys for giving a platform to someone that's so numbers centered, because right now we're in an intellectual crisis right now. We're in a abrasion to analytics crisis right now, where people just see analytics and they just run from it. And I think that's because I don't want to spend the whole time on this, but I just think that
it's okay, man. Do your thing.
Part of it is like I think that sometimes the analytical people are too harsh with their evaluations, where it's like, okay, the numbers say this player is going to suck. Like it's not that. I try to find balance.
Ones and zeros, input output. That's all it is, right? That's what people think.
I think that the way they frame certain things and to the masses, if it's a medium that people already don't understand, the way you're framing it, you're saying, okay, there's Akov. He doesn't shoot enough threes or draw enough fouls. He's gonna be a bust. Like that's kind of how it get framed sometimes. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys for giving Finn that platform to do his thing, because I think he's great.
Finn is incredible, and I think Jam, and I'll let you speak on this too, and I'm gonna kick it over to you here in a second, Jam, because I'm just gonna warn you real quick, Latif. Like Jam is gonna ask you a bunch of questions about draft philosophy. This is like one of the things that he's bringing to the show, and I greatly appreciate it, because it's good to get into the mind of the person that you're interacting with, right? That way you at least have some level of expectation where they're coming from. And that brings me to the point that I want to mention with Corey having Finn on the show too, is that Corey mentioned it perfectly. It's all a communication thing. And I would say, to your point, Latif, that, this crisis that we might be in, I think it depends on what echo chamber you're a part of, right? If I can put it like that, if you listen to enough people tell you that the world is the worst that it's ever been, then you're probably going to believe it. But the world has been the worst it's ever going to been since the history of the earth, right? So each year it only gets worse and worse and worse, but somehow it keeps spinning and everybody's okay. I think it all comes down to communication too, just like Corey said. And it doesn't matter how right you are. You could be wrong at the top of your voice. And the whole saying, how does it go, Jam, is, honey is sweeter than vinegar. So if you want to draw people in, you got to give them reason to want to be able to talk to you, right? So, great points, and thank you again, Latif. I appreciate you being very kind to us here, but we want to let the people know more about you. So, Jam, I'm going to kick it over to you for the questions that I know that you want to ask Latif.
Yeah, absolutely, Latif. So we kind of touched on it a little bit at the start, and you mentioned, and I appreciate that. What's your draft process look like when you're putting together your big board? I guess we'll start from preseason. We'll kind of work our way into how you manage it throughout the season. But when you're going into the season, pre-draft, how do you go about putting that board together? Because, man, it can change at a moment's notice.
Yeah, this year, especially, I was blessed to have access to a lot of pre-NCAA stats, which a lot of people don't. I think that somehow we got to get basketball stats more available for the masses. But I had access to that, and so my process generally when I am evaluating a prospect is I watch the film, and then I end up checking the numbers because I can't watch every single game. So I want to know if what I just watched is something of a smaller sample size, or is this the overall overarching theme for this player? So coming into this class, what I did pretty much was I watched the film on the guys, all the top prospects that I saw, people mentioning and people on boards, and then I checked some of their high school stats and looked at things I thought that was important for each position. Like obviously each position has different indicators and different stats that are important for them. Like for point guards, I'm looking for assist to turnover ratio. I'm looking for how much you draw fouls, your 3-point rate, your free throw rate. I'm looking for all that type of stuff. For guards, I'm looking how you control your team, your shot selection. I'm just looking at different things for different positions. But my process is always watch the film and then see if it is translating into numbers over a large enough sample. That's pretty much my process for every player. But that's how I got. I had a big board that dropped in October of 14 players. This class was pretty hard to evaluate. It's been pretty hard to evaluate. I haven't dropped a board since then. Every time I try to start something where I try to rank a player, a prospect goes and drops 40 points. Another, it's been incredibly hard to where I think that at the end of the day, I'm just going to wait until the season is over and then try to rank guys. Then we have the full sample of everything. But my process is always a combination of film and analytics. That's what I'm trying to do with all my work, trying to blend those things, like make it a marriage. Like that's my goal. Because what I ultimately want to do is have the numbers and then have the film directly right there to show why the numbers say what they say. And I think I've been doing a good job of that, but that's pretty much my process of evaluating talent. And because you always have a missing element of context if you don't, indulge both.
Yep.
Well said. And Latif, I want to ask you, I know that you've only been doing public facing work for a little bit, right? So I would say that your, progression as a scout, you certainly have more room in front of you than you do have work behind you right now, which is totally fine, right? Something that I have a hard time is committing to a set standard. And I know that there's a certain sect of draft Twitter that says if I don't have a fixed finish line at the end, then I don't have a valid process, which people are entitled to their opinion, and that's okay. But I just feel like each year I'm presented with different cases that break a rule or a threshold or a metric or whatever the case might be. So I'm always consistently trying to refine to I have this wall around me essentially of like what I think is a room where prospects need to be in, but when they break through this certain part of the wall, I got to shore up that side, if that makes sense, right? I feel like I'm always trying to find different areas within my scouting armor that I have to shore up, right? And so, with that being said, what are some of the biggest lessons that you feel like you have learned, through the scouting process? Because the more I do this, I feel like the less um, there's got to be a better way for me to say this. The less authoritative and like crimson red line of like this is definitely going to happen with this player, because there's so many instances and cases of players that just kind of break through a mold.
I've learned to not do that. Like I've learned to try to evaluate in the sense of like there's a range of outcomes for this player, and it can go in this many ways. And to reference my Darius Acuff article, I think that people like the conversation around him has been almost like it's been two extremes, where it's like this guy is going to be the best offensive player in the NBA, or this guy is going to be out of the league in 5 years. And I've tried to find a middle ground with that, and just try to establish a range of outcomes with said prospects. And I think the guys who I think have the highest like median outcomes are the guys we're going to have like that's I'm going to rank them based off of the most what I feel to be the most realistic median outcome for them. Obviously, I want to think about the ceilings and then the floor of the said players, but I think that prospects rarely reach their ceiling. So I think evaluating too much into a player's ceiling can kind of bite you in the butt. So I try to find the players where I feel very confident in the median outcome, and I establish that through things that I think could contribute to winning on a game to game basis, on a possession to possession basis. And so one thing I look for in prospects is what value do you bring when your shot's not falling? And I have Cameron Boozer number one because at least I think that he
You hate everybody else.
No.
No.
I have Cameron Boozer number one because partly at least because I feel like in a game where his shot is not falling, he's still going to provide immense value to a basketball club. We just saw it against Virginia. He shot 3 of 9 and finished with 18, 9, and 4. It was a plus 14, or it's probably higher than that. But one of the biggest lessons I would learn, I would say, is one thing I think is looking at players' high school tape a lot. You have to. It's very, very, very important. With someone like Stephon Castle, right? He was at UConn, and Dan Hurley had him playing in a very constrained role for what the Connecticut needed him for him to do for that team to win the national championship. But on his high school film, there was a lot more ball handling. There was a lot more playmaking. And he's seen to do that in the NBA. Now, it hasn't always, gave the best results. He's high turnover this year or whatever. But I think I was lower on him because I felt like he was a, off-ball guy that couldn't shoot the ball. But his defense was pretty good in college, and it's been amazing this year in the NBA. So it's just trying to evaluate guys outside of the context of their situation they're in, and also diving into some of the high school tape where you'll see stuff that is, not showing on the college level where they're in these systems. I think one of the biggest examples was Con Knippel last year, where in his EYBL tape, he was much more on ball. He did a lot more ball handling. Yep. He led EYBL in scoring, I think, in 2 years. And so it's no surprise that when he got to the NBA and he got the ball a little bit more, he's still definitely an off-ball player, but he can handle the ball. He showed that as well when flag went down and he increased his usage. But it's just trying to evaluate these players and see how their game will scale in different contexts and different situations. And again, when their shot is not falling, how much value do they provide? So I become lower on players that need the ball to go in. Someone I was very high on was Rob Dillingham, and he still has a lot of his career to go, seemingly.
Yep.
But when the ball isn't going in for him, what value does he provide? It doesn't seem like it's a lot. So that's how my scouting philosophy has changed. I'm really into how a player will affect the four factors on both sides of the ball. So how is a player going to affect the field goal percentage of his said team? How is a player going to affect offensive rebounding, turnover percentage? What am I else? Free throw rate.
Assists. Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's like 6 factors, to be honest, but that's why I have Cameron Boozer number 1, because I think he's going to affect the 4 factors the most on both sides of the ball of any player in this class. But my process now is very, very strenuous now, where I'm diving into the film, diving into the numbers to build out a whole philosophy right now. So I wouldn't say I have like a set, like this prospect, I'm going to evaluate him. I don't have 10 stats and then I fit each player into this. No, that's not how I do it. It's not like a one size fit all thing at all. It's players are too different. The context of each player is too different to evaluate that way, I think.
I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense. And Jam, I'll kick it over to you because I know that you're a big high, medium, low guy. We've talked about this on a number of shows right here as well. And who the heck knows what a ceiling and a floor is anyway? Like how many times do we underestimate a ceiling and overestimate a floor? You know what I mean? Like how many times do we get those wrong? Like we don't know what those are. Those are just words that we can say that other people, when they listen to them, they're arbitrary. Right.
Before Jam goes, there's some words I really begin to hate, and I've talked about this.
Oh, here we go. Favorite segment right here. Latif.
The words I begin to hate is potential, upside, ceiling, floor. Like I just want to get rid of all of that. Honestly, like I don't know.
What are we going to talk about, Latif?
Yeah, I don't know that it's possible because those are like common buzzwords, and it helps our understanding of basketball, along with like comparisons. It just helps our understanding of basketball, and we have someone to compare it to, or we have like a potential, like how good can this player be type of thing. But I think that the reason why I struggle with those words nowadays is because there's no way to measure it at all, to be honest. So it's been a struggle, but yeah, I'll let Jim go.
No,
man,
Latif,
go brought up some good thing. Man, we have to name this segment Latif doesn't love this or something, man. Like
the anti-love.
The anti-love, yeah. Man, just you brought up and touched on so many great things, especially something that I really identify is looking to identify that low, medium, and high outcomes and how likely prospects are to reach those different outcomes and what that impact will be on there. And as you mentioned, you're looking to pretty much put more stock into what the medium outcome is as opposed to the ceiling. And I thought that was very interesting too. And because one thing I would like to see is how high that floor is. And for someone, especially at the top of the draft, you really want those prospects with that high floor, high upside. And maybe like you were saying, a lot of times that medium outcome is pretty high as well too. So I think that's something that I'm going to start looking more into my evaluation now that you had talked about and said that, putting a little more emphasis on those guys that can potentially have more of a higher medium outcome than floor as well too. And then the other thing real quick, though, another great point about seeing guys in different contexts, you brought up Con Knipple, and that was fantastic. And Caleb Wilson falls into this as well too. Different role that he's playing with. When he was with the Boozers on Night Riders, and then what he did at was the Holy Innocent. What was this high school Innocent Episcopal, and what he's doing that, and then UNC. Always operates as a play finisher and everything like that. And then UNC, he has the ball in his hands, they would experiment more and everything like that. And that role is probably going to look different, at least initially on the NBA level, when I think personally you want to pair him with a point guard who can set him up, get some easier shots. We previously talked about Indiana being a great fit for him as well, running with Halliburton and getting out of there, and being able to learn from a guy like Siakam who shares similar profile, I believe. I think Latif, you had mentioned the same thing as well in the past about him as well too. So being able to see guys in different contexts, what works, what doesn't work. Darren obviously is right up there. High school, probably one of the main candidates, prime examples of this. We talk about what he does as a facilitator, as a passer, getting to see much more of that advanced playmaking on the grassroots level than we're seeing right now at Kansas.
No, I think that's a great point about Caleb, and something that I think is very important. Not only like the context you play in, but how scalable you are. How you perform when you can you scale down, can you scale up, or is your game you just need the ball in your hands? Caleb is a prospect I think is really scalable right now. You talked about when he was a Knight Riders, he was a lower usage guy. He still was really dominant, but he really focused on his defense and his passing and stuff like that. And then when he is in his regular high school, public school, whatever, he is handling the ball. He's shooting more threes, which is on his high school film. And then when he gets to UNC, no one really expected him to handle this much usage as he did, be this efficient. And so he's showing scalability. When he has the high usage, he's been effective in his own way. When he was on lower usage, he can be effective in his own way. And that's why I have Caleb my fourth best prospect in this class, because I think that his range of outcomes are immense, but all of them I think are going to be an effective NBA player. And that's why I'm pretty high on him. If he is just like Sar Thompson or something like that type of player, like not like same position, but like just defend, get out of transition, pass a little bit, that's going to be impactful. Like I don't think there's not that many outcomes where he's not impactful because of the floor he brings with defense, rebounding, hustle, effort plays. And then if he can put it all together, improve his handle, improve his jump shot, which these things are not like out of the question, given his age, given just his rapid development over the years, it can look like something like Siakam. So when a player has those many range of outcomes, but is scalable to that extent and also impactful in these different roles, like at some point, even if it doesn't look the prettiest, this is a good basketball player. And so, that's how I feel about players like Caleb Wilson. So that's also things I'm looking for in players. Like, can you scale down? Can you scale up? Your impact when you have lower usage. And that's something like with like Stephon Castle, again, he showed that ability in high school and in college.
Great stuff, Latif. And I would say for the same reasons that you laid out, that's why I have Caleb 3. I know that that's not a popular take, but it is what it is. Like he's almost, and I'm going to say something that I really hate to say, but I feel like he's Teflon is what the kids are saying, right?
Teflon, it's one of my favorite words.
I think that Caleb's Teflon, dude. Like I think that he, compared to the other three, the big three, and this is going to lead me into my next question. I think that compared to the other three, like, to your point, and I've made this case, Jam, that he has a wide range of outcomes. And I think that there is a world where he could be like the best, Robin out there, and maybe even a Batman. It might not be on like a championship winning team, but I think that he can give you stints where for stretches of the season where he can be your best player and your team can still win. So, Latif, before we got some specific questions, for the audience out there, we have some specific players and prospects that we're going to dive into. But the last question I want to ask you before we do that is just kind of broad stroke about the big three. I don't want to not give you an opportunity while you're here to kind of share your thoughts on the draft class, to include the big three, maybe some depth, anything that you just want to anything that you're feeling passionate about within this draft class as a whole. Floor is yours.
Okay, I'll start with the big three. I mean, that's obviously what everybody wants to hear about. I have Cameron Boozer at 1, simply put because I think he'll have the best impact on winning. And I think that sometimes when we say impact on winning, that can be arbitrary as well. But when I say that, I mean, again, the impact on the technically 8 factors of winning the basketball game. I think offensively, and it's shown in his Duke numbers. I actually posted a chart about it on my Twitter. It's on there. In terms of affecting the teams.
Just real quick, I'm sorry. Your Twitter
shout that out.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let people know where they can look that up.
Yeah, it's real Latif Love. I have a few, charts on there in terms of like a lot of players actually. But I think that Cam is going to impact a team's true shooting percentage, their free throw rate, effective field goal percentage, all that type of stuff. Assist percentage, like he keeps turnovers low. He rebounds the ball well on both sides of the ball. He creates turnovers with his steals on defense. He's obviously not the greatest defender. We know that. Not the greatest athlete, but I think that he'll have the biggest impact on winning. And I mean, it's been proven up until this point. I mean, he's won everywhere. Sure. He's won in high school. He's won at AAU. He's going to win. He's winning at Duke. They had their offense is passable, honestly, just because of Cam. Like Pat has his moments. Isaiah Evans is a sniper, but that is a defensive-minded team that's getting floor raising from Cam. I think that the reason I have him number one as well is because I don't think I've ever seen a prospect with this like play type versatility. It's something I talked about at length. You go on Synergy and just go look at Cam's like play type and efficiency. He has like 10 different categories. All of them say excellent. All of them. He's not actually bad at anything offense like whatsoever. He can run pick and rolls as the roll man or the ball handler. He can pick and pop. He can cut. He can offensive rebound. He can post up. He can pretty much do everything on the basketball court offensively. And I understand he is not the greatest athlete. I understand he needs to improve his handle. I understand that the mid-range counters haven't been there this year. But when we're talking about impacting winning the basketball game, I think that he can do that at the best level of any prospect in his class. Even when his shot is not falling, he's still going to be creating shots for his teammates. He's still going to be offensive rebounding. He's still going to be rebounding on the defense end as well. So I just think that he's the most well-rounded player in his class. He's also the youngest player in his class, I think. Well, amongst the youngest players in the class. And right now, I have AJ at 2. I came in this year with Cam, Darren Peterson, and AJ in that order. Now I have AJ at 2. Briefly, I will say I think that if you have Darren Peterson at number 1 or number 2, you're relying on a lot of his high school tape. You're relying on a lot of it. You're relying on a lot of it being like, oh, he's injured, which I also do think he's injured. I'm not discounting it at all, but it gets hard for me to like rely on that this late in the cycle when we have 2 other great prospects. I do think that Darren is not at full health. I do think that the Kansas context has kind of like skewed what people think he is. He definitely is a great off-ball player who can, do his little Ray Allen thing, but he was much more on ball in high school. I think that if he wants to be on ball in the NBA, he needs to improve his handle. He needs to improve his ability to handle hard hedges because that's been an issue since prolific prep. He's not great at handling hard hedges or traps in the pick and roll whatsoever. He opens his hips up too much towards like the baseline and can't get downhill. But I think that Darren Peterson, when he's healthy, will be a lot more on ball. His passing is relying on him getting downhill and then creating for others. That's why he hasn't had any assists this year, because he can't get downhill because he's hurt or his handle, or I think that also it doesn't make sense for him to be on ball because of Melvin Cancel is not a great shooter. Trey White is not a great shooter. So when he was on the ball early in the season, teams were just ignoring everybody else pretty much. But regardless, I have AJ at 2 because I think this is one of the best scoring prospects in a very long while. People have questions about his process of scoring the basketball. He's pretty mid-range heavy. He has more non-rim twos than rim twos. And I share those concerns. Yeah. For sure. But one thing about AJ, he's not like other mid-range spammers. He's not whatsoever. First of all, a lot of his mid-ranges are coming closer to the basket. They're not actually like long mid-range twos. They're actually paint twos that are much more efficient. He is drawing a lot of fouls on those shots. He is drawing a whole bunch of free throws in general. He is avoiding turnovers for the most part. So his combination of efficiency, turnover avoidance, he's actually right now, at least I think he's a fine passer, improving passer. You're not going to really find that many players that are handling this much usage, this efficient, not turning the ball over, and passing the ball at the level he is at his age whatsoever. I think that he can be one of the best scorers in the NBA. And I think in terms of his, 4-factor influence, he's going to keep turnovers down for his team. I think that while he's on the floor, his team's true shooting percentage is going to be really good because of his ability to knock down shots. Like, he's a supreme shot maker. He gets compared to he gets compared to DeRozan. He gets compared to Jaylen Brown. He gets compared to Paolo sometimes. A lot of these players, he is much better than those guys as a shot maker. He just is. He's much better than most of those guys as a foul drawer. He's much better than most of those guys at keeping turnovers down. He's had his warts, but that guy's a really good prospect. So I have him at 2, and then I have Darren at 3. I think that if he can return to like what he was in high school, I think he may be number one in terms of getting downhill, as pretty explosive athlete, 3-level scoring. And then I think his interior passing took a really big leap his senior season at Prolific Prep. And so, yeah, that's really how I evaluated the top three. I'm kind of tired of talking about the top three. There's so much talent in this class. This is the best draft class I ever evaluated, and it's rich with talent. So I think that other players need their shine. Honestly, those guys are going to be the top three picks. We should spend a lot of time talking about other players. Let's talk about players that are going to be in the 20s or something like that. That's what I want to talk about more often in the cycle.
Latif,
yeah,
I mean that's why we brought you on, man, because there are a lot of players that, to your point, that are going to be really impactful within this class, and in terms of like, years down the line when we're redrafting, the redraft is going to look way different than the draft. Like that's just the way that it always goes. But consensus, it's gonna look different no matter how smart we think we are, no matter who the brightest minds are in the game, whatever they're saying, we're going to be wrong at some level. And Jam and I, here on the Draft Sicko segment, here on the No Ceilings feed, we want to talk more about the depths within this class. So on the other side of this break, we are going to kick things off with Michigan Wolverine, Morez Johnson Jr. So hang tight on the other side of this break. We'll be back with Latif, and we'll go ahead and get started with some player evaluation. So just hang tight. All right, we are back here on the No Ceilings NBA show, here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also on your podcast player of choice. Jam and I, my co-host Jam Hines and I, we are joined by a very special guest, one of the brightest young minds in the draft space, Latif Love. You've probably seen him from a number of different places where he's been involved with. And again, he's been on Draft Junkies podcast with James Barlow, friend of the program. It's been awesome to see the comeuppance of Latif Love, and so we're excited to have him here on the show. Earlier, we just got done talking with him about how he kind of cut his teeth into talking about the draft. We even talked about some of the top three within the 2026 NBA draft class and got his thoughts. Now, Latif, we're going to kind of put your evaluation skills a little to the test, and we're going to see what you have to say on some players. Of course, we're going to share some of our thoughts as well. We're going to kick things off with Morez Johnson Jr., the sophomore kind of forward, big hybrid out of Michigan, listed at 6'9", 250 pounds, will be 20 years old. On the season, Jam, he's averaging 13.3 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 1.2 blocks, almost 1 steal, with shooting splits of 64, 35, 79, only 1.3 turnovers per game and 2.3 fouls per game. Latif, why don't you go ahead and kind of share your overarching thoughts on Morez? Did you have any expectations of him coming into the season, transferring in from Illinois? And how has he kind of compared to what your initial thoughts of him coming into the season were?
I would like to brag a little bit and say I was pretty early on him. I know Tyler was early on him as well, Tyler Rucker.
Metcalf too. Metcalf had been pushing that train. He's a big Michigan guy.
In October, I did like a little Q&A on my Twitter, and I said I had Morez Johnson stock. I was pretty early on him. I loved what he did in FIBA. I thought he was kind of a guy last year. And why I'll say he was kind of a guy last year is because he had an immense impact on Illinois' defense. They didn't really have anyone that could protect the rim outside of him. Their defense was 11 points better with him on the floor. Their defensive field goal percentage at the rim was way better with him on the floor. Now, he fouled a lot. That's because they had no other rim protectors. They had no perimeter defense either. So I think that he was incredibly impactful even last year at Illinois, which is why the fans were so mad when he left, especially with him being a Illinois native. We actually graduated from the same high school. But Morez, I think his FIBA was what really got me in on him. I think he played extremely well. He definitely has exceeded my expectations, though. I mean, he's been amazing. So I would be shocked to find out if he didn't exceed anyone's expectations because of how great he's been. What stood out to me is how much his touch has grown this season. Percentage jumped immensely. His 3-point percentage and volume has jumped immensely. I think this is another player where he shot the ball in high school. He did do that. At St. Rita, at Thornton, he shot the ball. He just had, I think he had more of a freedom here at Michigan, and also much of a more need because he can't really play with Yaxo and Mara if he can't shoot the ball. So creating that need, it enhances his game, and that's what can happen to prospects. Morez, though, I think that he can fight for the best center in the class. I really think he can. He's an excellent rebounder, excellent offensive rebounder, excellent rim protector. He's switchable. He can go on the wing and probably guard 3 through 5. He had some really good reps on Keaton Wagler the other night. He's a tenacious defender. He has a really good frame, really good athleticism. I made a comparison to him last month to Beef Stew, and
I think that's the comp right there. I love the Isaiah Stewart comparison.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Isaiah. I think that the casual fan doesn't really know how good Isaiah Stewart is and has been in the past. He's been an incredible defender since he's pretty much been in the NBA. And it has allowed him to play the 4 and the 5. And I envision that as well for Morez. I think that he can play minutes at the 4. He can play minutes at the 5. He's a tweener and not the bad way. Like he can actually play both of those positions, I think, at a really good level. So I think that he's in consideration for, I think, a lottery pick. He's at, I think, 30 amongst consistents, which just came out today. I think he's.
Where are you getting that information from, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know the dude's name.
I've seen a couple of Hoops Distillery, I think, is one that puts out kind of like an average of where people have them.
You guys are curious. No ceilings, like they grab some like the rankings from No Ceilings and other outlets. I forgot the dude's name on Twitter, but I think he works with Draft Express, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, there's like a consistent top 60 that just went out today, and he's 30 right now. But I do think he can provide lottery value, but there's so many players in this class where I may not even have him 14 just because so much talent. But Morez, the motor, the athleticism, the finishing touch, he's shooting 76% at the rim. His defensive impact, by the numbers, hasn't been that great as it was at Illinois because they have the best rim protector in the world right now, I guess, in Ade Mara. So it's
Sure.
hard. Your on off isn't going to be that good if you have Ade Mara on the floor when you're off. But I think he's been tremendously valuable for this Michigan team, and I think that he should definitely be a first round pick. And I think a team is going to get a really good player in him. If the Celtics end up hitting him, they're going back to the finals. I don't know. Really great player. I can speak about him for days for sure.
Very fair and very I would say pretty apt kind of scouting profile there, Jam. What do you think?
Yeah, Latif, man, I think you were spot on with the evaluation there, especially talking about him really showing a lot of stuff at Illinois, and then Illinois fans obviously being upset about him leaving, and then he takes what he did in Illinois, builds off of that in the FIBA play. For me, just like Michael Brown, he may have been I think the second best player for me as far as people who raise their value at FIBA. Not just talent-wise, but just as far as raising their value. And he did that against, kept stacking on the resume, and then you see everything really coming together at Michigan. And I think one of the really intriguing things that you pointed out about is him potentially shooting the ball. And the form does not look bad at all. He looks pretty comfortable. It's fairly fluid. I believe it was their most recent game, hit a little pick and pop 3. Well, he come with a relocation. He kind of short rolled and backed out of it and then hit the 3. But I think something that was pretty it was pretty encouraging for me to see that. I know it's a very small sample size, but on unguarded catch and shoot threes on Synergy, he's knocking down 46.7%, and that's 15 attempts. So I thought that was great to see, very encouraging that someone at the very least, you have someone, as you mentioned, Beef Stew, that can knock down some open threes. I believe it was maybe sometime last year, I believe the numbers were for him, but he ended up being one of the best three-point shooters for Detroit, So, I mean, obviously that says something good about him, but also Detroit's need a lot for more shooting. But I said it to say there are a lot of parallels, as you mentioned, with Beef Stew, and the shooting, I think, can really follow a similar trajectory. I wouldn't draft him expecting him to shoot, and I think that's the same kind of thought process, at least I had for Isaiah Stewart as well, too. You have the motor, what he does defensively on the glass and as a play finisher, but it'll be gravy if he can shoot. All the signs were there, and he's been able to really extract that from his game, and I don't think that's out of the question for Morez either.
And I think, too, part of the versatility, just real quick, Latif, and I'll kick it over to you, is that what you see with Beef Stew, how he can play next to Jalen Duren, and Detroit could run an offense, or if he needs to play the 5 and they have Tobias Harris or Ron Holland or whoever they want to run and give minutes at the 4, Asar Thompson, if they want to go kind of small with him at the 4. Detroit has that kind of positional versatility built into what you just mentioned earlier, Latif, is that versatility, that tweener. And I love how you kind of contextualize that phrase for him, because oftentimes, especially for like kind of a guy who goes between the 4 and the 5, you hear tweener, it's like, okay, he's not good enough at a lot of different things, but he's just kind of big enough to where he can do both. That's not the case for Morez, because he's already showing that he can provide a little bit of floor spacing. He's growing more confident kind of game by game, week by week in his shot. And the free throw percentage kind of gives a little bit more credence to the fact that, okay, that shot might be projectable. Our guy Metcalf here at No Ceilings has been boots on the ground for several Michigan games, and he's watched him warm up and just knock down shots. He's been saying for a long time that I wouldn't be surprised if Morez ends up being a shooter. So him being able to do kind of that same thing, playing next to a Yaxel Lenneborg or next to an Ade Mara within that front court, I think that that's going to be one of the most underappreciated sorts of players within this class, going back to how special this class is. But it's deep at guard. The quality of big men within this class is going to disappear quick, and I think that there's only a couple of guys who you can look at towards like the lottery range, and that's where I do have Morez. And then the rest of the big men that we're talking about, you're maybe looking at like very late first round or early second round, where a lot of these guys are being evaluated. Some of their draft stock might get inflated due to positional scarcity, but here's Morez Johnson Jr. just waiting for you, having the talent to go along with it being a sort of weaker big man class, Latif.
So the first thing I want to say is that, like, when we think of the word tweener, it's mostly used in a negative context, but I think there's, for how we can use it, is like a good tweener, and then there's like a bad tweener. A bad tweener, it stresses out your lineup. Like it's you can't really play them at the 4, you can't really play them at the 5. Then there's tweeners where you can play them both, and then it offers you lineup versatility, like the inverse of stressing your lineup, and it gives you, you being able to play them at different spots. And so I think that Morez, again, is going to just provide that. I also think that he's going to be an analytics darling because of, creating more possessions for a team, or extending possessions, I should say, is very valuable for like analytics. And he is a great offensive rebounder. He's a great defense rebounder. He creates turnovers, and he's a very efficient finisher at the rim. So I also saw a tweet the other day that said he's like, I don't know how they said, oh, he's just a tough guy that analytics can't scout. Like, he's going to be a great analytical player in the NBA. In terms of the center class, I actually came into the season thinking there was going to be a weaker center class, but I actually think that probably after guard, it's probably the best position in the draft, I would say.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that it's that far apart.
It's certainly not wing, though. I tell you that.
Yeah. It might be the second best position group, but I think it's a far drop off.
Yeah, I would say everybody may not get to the first round, but I do think a lot of these centers can provide first round value. I really like the centers in this class. I like Morez. I like Patrick Ngungba. I like Krivas. I like Mara. Like there's a lot of guys in this class. Vesar. Like there's a lot of guys in this class. We're gonna talk about Zvonimir Ivisic. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we're bringing him up later. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys in this class that I think that have a shot at providing first round value in this class.
I agree that there are a lot of big men who it's hard to nail down which ones are going to be in what order, and I think that's going to be one of the more interesting aspects. And just real quick, you touched on the rebounding. I'm just going to give a little bit of context behind the scout there, Latif. Offensive rebound percentage, this was last I look, it might have updated, at 12.5, defensive rebound percentage of 19.6, block percentage of 5.3, steal percentage of 1.8, had 55 stocks to 63 fouls committed, and shooting 35% on his jumpers. Jam, I love how you touched on that he is hitting these open jumpers, 72nd percentile on open jumpers last I looked, and he's a big dude listed at 6'9", 250 pounds. He's got 31 dunks, 16 of those were in the half court, right? So, and I love that he's a good transition big too. He's not just like one of these plodding big men. So athletic, big, strong, quick, gives multiple efforts, motor is hot all the time. Just a lot of things that you're worried about in a big man don't exist with Morez Johnson Jr. So one of the best sleeper big men within this class. Jam, did you want to add anything else before we go to our next guy?
Yeah, just a couple real quick things to wrap up on them. And we talk about more of touch indicators, shooting 79% from the free throw line. So it's another good encouraging sign that the shooting could be there, at least maybe a corner three guy, just an open three-point shooter, provides some type of space and a little more versatility to his offensive game. And then he's listed at 6'9". Do you think, are any of you guys worried about the height at all? For me personally, I'm not. I think that kind of combination of his playing style and also the strength and length component, I think that's going to be more than enough to compensate for him not exactly having the ideal measurements that you want from your center at 6'9" and whatever he's going to measure in there. But I think it'll be plus length, as I said, and that strength will be there as well too.
Let's see. What do you think? I'm
very curious to see what his standing reach and wingspan is. That's going to be very important for his evaluation. Because one thing I do believe is that like Isaiah Stewart was definitely a better rim protector than him. And I think, one thing about Stu is that like you can put him on like legit bigs. And that's something I'm still waiting to see for Morez. I'm going to rewatch the film and see how he matched up against like true bigs this year. That's key for his evaluation because I definitely think he can, he can play spot minutes at the 5. He can, be your backup 5 and then your starting 4 or whatever. But I want to see if he can, truly guard bigs and has the standing reach, has the wingspan to do so. That makes me a lot higher on his potential in the NBA. So the measurables are going to be something that is definitely important for him. He is a well-built guy and very athletic, but having that wingspan, having that standing reach is paramount.
I wholeheartedly agree. All right, so let's shift gears. We're going to go from Morez Johnson Jr. to now we're going to talk about Tounde Yessoufou, the freshman Baylor kind of combo guard wing is how I would classify him. Listed at 6'5", 215 pounds. Another one of these younger freshman dudes on the season. 17.9 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, over 1.5 assists, 2 steals, half a block, shooting splits of 47, 32, 74, under 2 turnovers per game, just over 2 fouls per game. Latif coming in. Yeah, a lot of hype around Tounde. There were a lot of people who were big believers in him, especially coming out of being California's leading scoring prospect like ever coming out of that state, and that's saying a lot. That's a lot of hoopers coming out of that region of the country. So again, let's kick it over to you, Latif. Thoughts coming in. Where is he landed in your eval so far?
Tounde has been as I expected. Now I had him I think in my lottery, my first board, but my vision for Tounde was never the next Anthony Edwards or any of that type of stuff. I was never really in on him being like a vocal point of an offense or that type of scorer because yes, he broke the record. And somebody just said in the comments, Tounde reminds me of Dort. Exactly. I'll get to that. But he broke the record in high school for scoring in California. However, a lot of that was in transition. It was the same in AAU. He almost played like a big in AAU in terms of, he did some like some posting up, some play finishing stuff. Tounde is if he embraced a role like an off-ball role where he just focused on defense, spot up shooting, and then attack some closeouts, got out in transition. I think that can be a very, very, very good NBA player. If he was like a Lou Dort with better, like, because Lou Dort really cannot finish at the rim, or like handle the ball whatsoever. I think that Tounde's offensive upside as a play finisher is higher than his. If he was able to like just embrace that role as a lower usage wing, that can defend, play finish, get out in transition, I think that's a very valuable player and someone worth taking in the lottery with an understanding of what we're trying to do with this said prospect. If he was drafted in the top 10 or whatever, something like that, I don't think he will be now, but coming into the year, he was drafted in the top 10, top 5, expected to be a just high usage creator. It would have went bad. I think that he really struggled in the beginning of the year to finish in a half court. He took a second adjustment period to figure out how to score in a half court efficiently. And he definitely still has his awards as a scorer, but I can get really high on him as someone that can defend with his athleticism, with his rebounding. He's actually a really good rebounder for his position as well. I can buy that prospect if a coach understands what we should be getting out of this prospect. If Tounde is coachable and can buy into what the role he can be in the NBA, I can get pretty high on him, even in a class like this, because of some of the things he provides. But I don't think that that's the case right now. And honestly, he's probably going to come out, but I think he can benefit from another year in school.
For sure. I think that's all fair stuff. Let me ask you just one more quick question. I'll kick it over to Jam. Cam Carr just kind of almost came out of nowhere. A lot of expectations for him when he went to Tennessee. Didn't really happen. Gave it a couple of seasons. Didn't just transfer immediately. Gave it a couple of years at Tennessee. Transfers over to Baylor. And now he's looking like a really talented 3-and-D wing coming out of Baylor. In conjunction with Tounde performing the way that he has relative to the incoming expectations, like, how are you sifting through the Baylor watches, analyzing both of these guys? Like, do you have them in a similar range? Do you have one way higher than the other? Kind of like, how are you digesting what you're watching with the Baylor stuff?
I'm much higher on Cameron Carr than I am with Tounde right now. But I think he has his flaws as well. And then a class is talented. I also have him outside the lottery, mid first round to early 20s is probably where I have him on my board. Cameron Carr, he's an electric athlete. He's a really good shooter. The problem with him is that like the history for prospects that are this assisted in college is not really great at all. If you can't, or you're not great at creating your own shot in college, it doesn't really bode well for your NBA translation. However, I do think he can be a really good play finisher in terms of just spot up shooting, maybe some movement shooting stuff, attacking closeouts. Another really concerning part of his profile is that his 2-point scoring against top 100 competition has been very, very concerning. Last time I checked, it was like 40%. He isn't scoring well at the rim or from two against quality competition. He's an interesting defender because he doesn't get a lot of steals, but he gets a lot of blocks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird in that instance. I think he can provide value to teams. He's kind of like almost like a diet version of Trey Murphy to me. Is a comp I made for him earlier in a year. But yeah, I think that someone that can play finish to the level he can, and someone that can potentially offer defensive versatility to the level he can is valuable for NBA teams. I just in this class at least, I don't know how valuable in terms of where I would select him, but I think he's definitely a first round pick, and I think he can provide value for NBA teams for sure.
Okay, all right. So Jam, back to the Tounde scout. I liked him a great deal coming in. You know, I definitely had him lottery. I want to say I even had him top 10 without looking, and I didn't look before I came on the show, so bad on me, slap myself on the wrist. But it's interesting to look at Tounde because physically just watching him on film, like you're just like, okay, this is an NBA level athlete. To the points that Latif had made, there are some fun defensive things that he can do with Baylor. I even saw someone in the chat, J Gyro 5059 says, I think Baylor is a bad choice for Tounde. Baylor's always frustrating with me watching guards who come in with high expectations because for whatever reason, it hardly ever is as cut and dry as an eval as you want it to be within that system. And I think Tounde has kind of fallen subject to that. The big men that Baylor typically has, they're not there now. So it's a weird ecosystem for me to watch someone who is as highly touted, who has this great like character kind of green flags from everybody that I've talked to about him. It's been such a frustrating watch, and I'm writing about this with Koa Pete. I kind of wonder if the same thing might be with Tounde. Is I can't help but think if Tounde is just going to be one of these guys who's a much better NBA player than he is a college player.
They also need a point guard. They don't have a point guard.
Yeah.
And as you know, Latif, man, like that really sets the tone, put everybody in the right position and the right places to make things easier. And with Tounde, like for me, I feel like there's a little bit of a narrative that he's having a bad season, or I just don't see that. You know, he's someone just pure numbers wise who's this season is averaging 17.6 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game, an assist and a half, and 2.4 stocks per game. You know, so I don't see someone who's really having this bad year, and then like Baylor has not been great for him. Like definitely, like if you guys feel that way, I want to hear that argument. What exactly do you want to see more from him, or what Scott Drew is supposed to be doing more with him? Because it's not like he's in this off-ball role or he's used like a big man. He's getting a chance to play his game, have the ball in his hands. He's shooting 5.3 attempts per game. So like he's getting a chance to have his freedom, get his stuff off, show what he can and what he can't do. And then it's going to be about, can he go to the NBA level and find that role? Can he adjust, as Latif, as you mentioned, ideally that 3-and-D off-ball role, and be more so of a 3-and-D plus guy, meaning that main role is 3-and-D. But yeah, you're going to give him a chance to still run some pick and rolls here and there, get a chance to be a scorer. But that may be something he may have to build up into like year 2, year 3, you know. But that first year and a half, it's going to have to be him in that defensive role. But what are you guys seeing on the tape wise, or if you have numbers wise, whatever the situation is, if you do feel like that Baylor has kind of done him a disservice? Because I don't quite see it that way.
I'm going to kick it over to Latif. I'll let him cook. Go ahead, brother.
I would say I don't think he's had a bad year in terms of his individual play. I just think that the ecosystem at Baylor isn't like Steven said, isn't what it usually is. Their big play is bad. They had to bring James Najee from the NBA. It wasn't even good. They don't have really like a point guard to set it. They don't have a Rob Wright there. Like they're missing a Rob Wright to set those guys up. And that I think that's really hurt Carr's evaluation. I think that's hurts Tounde's evaluation, where they're not in a great ecosystem right now. This is probably one of the worst Baylor teams in a while. So that's what's hurt his production efficiency. He's still getting his points up, but in terms of like his NBA translation, I would love to see a point guard there to set him up more. I would love to see a actual good screen and rolling big. So when he runs those screen and rolls, he gets opportunities to get downhill and showcase his athleticism and stuff like that. Like if he was off the ball more and focusing more on defense, he can get out transition and be one of the best transition players in his class. But since that ecosystem at Baylor is not there this season, we haven't been able to see Tounde at his full strength, because he could have been a lottery pick in this class. He could have been a top 10 pick in this class if he was in a different role, I think, and also if the ecosystem at Baylor was better. And I think that Baylor's ecosystem hasn't been the best for prospects in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like Keontae got his game off, Jacoby got his game off, but I left that year feeling underwhelmed from both of those guys. Those two guys are really high on, Jacoby and Keontae. So yeah.
I agree with a lot of that. Baylor's been a thorn in my side for a while, but a couple things that I'll add just for the Tounde discussion to answer your question, Jam. Last I looked on Synergy in preparation for the show, 50th percentile in isolation, which is okay. 46th percentile in transition, which is kind of not what you want, especially for his player type. 27th percentile in scoring off of screens, and 22nd percentile scoring as the pick and roll ball handler, right? So really what you're seeing him dominate on at Baylor is cutting and post ups and a little bit of transition. And it's not, I guess maybe this is my fault. It's not how I wanted to evaluate him playing this year based off of what I saw in the high school film. So, and I don't necessarily think that was the sell on him coming into the season. To your point, Jam, you mentioned, 3-and-D, want to see him do a little bit more with the pick and roll in his hand. There's not a relief valve at Baylor to help him out. Yes, there is Carr, who is doing great, but you're not really seeing like a high assist role with Tounde to like make that worth it, if that makes sense, right? You don't really have another guard who is giving a chance for second side creation. You're not having a big man who is going to score and operate well out of pick and roll sets, and these like kind of DHO looks. So that has made the evaluation frustrating. But here's something, Jam, and I'll kick it over to you before we close out on Tounde, is that you and I talk about this. If we're production only in our evaluation, as opposed to projection as well, weighting projection, then you miss on guys. You miss on your Peyton Watsons. You miss on your GG Jacksons. You miss on a number of other players that is going to be mentioned in my piece at NoCeilingsNBA.com this Thursday when I write about Koa Pete, if you just look at production only. So, and I think that's kind of the point to where you were getting to, Jam.
Yeah, it's just that like I just feel like he's had a chance to really play his game for the most part. He's not really restricted, and I think just kind of look at the more so the opposite way, because if he was restricted to a 3-and-D role, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe this role definitely does. It is his ideal role, but like we never get a sample size outside of high school of what it looks like, of what the ceiling could potentially look like. All the ingredients that we mentioned are not quite there for him to really explore that, but he does have the ball in his hands, and it's like, all right, let's see what you can do. The roster is flawed, but you have the ball in your hands. You can shoot threes, you can get out, grab and go, you can do your thing, and you aren't pigeonholed to just playing 3-and-D. So I am glad that we do have this sample size to see that, and it's just about like, all right, can he scale down his game a little bit, which I think he can. And I think a lot of that's also going to be about once you get in the interviews for NBA teams, they get a chance to sit him down, talk to him, understand the mindset. Is he going to be someone who's going to sacrifice his offense and understand that he can be a star in this role and still get his and still develop and get that way? And then obviously not the same players, but I'm just thinking about just their mindset and the role and everything. But you talk about Jaden McDaniels. He comes in there.
Another name that I'm going to have in my piece,
He was a guy, one of the top players in high school coming out, on-ball guy, who we thought could potentially be a 1 or number 2 option, but someone whose primary role is going to be the ball in the hands, get you some buckets, even though all the defensive talent was there, the length, the recovery skills, the athleticism, all that there. And he comes in the first year, and then pretty much up in the past couple years in Minnesota, he's been playing that 3-and-D role, taking all the tough assignments, and he's gradually got more and more responsibility. So that's something that I can eventually see with Tounde. And then I want to wrap it up, use on my end about Tounde. The off-ball stuff, it looks good for the most part. When he wants to, he sets up cuts well, and with that powerful frame, athletic finisher, getting downhill above the rim finisher. Shooting 31.6% on threes overall, but digging a little deeper, 36.1% from 3 on spot ups, which I love. On unguarded catch and shoot threes, he's shooting 43.6, and that's 36 attempts. And one thing that's keeping his numbers, overall 3-point numbers, down, which I think will not be the case on the NBA level, a lot of the shots that he is shooting from three, especially from the catch and shoot variety, are contested. 67.2 of his catch and shoot threes are contested. He shot 78 of them so far, and he's shooting 29.5% on those. So I think he's going to get more open threes. He's not going to be shooting as many contested threes, and I think you'll see that number really stabilize and him be a reliable open shooter on an NBA level.
I'm loving the sell there. Latif, anything else on Tounde before we hit our break and go to our next two guys?
No, I don't. I agree. I mean, I think that's great insight to dive into like the difference in like his open catching threes and his contested catching threes. Like that's great insight for that prospect. Considering I agree with you that he's not going to be, at least he shouldn't be shooting like super contested threes at the next level. But I think that just speaks to like, I think that this guy could be a really good NBA player given the right situation, given his ability to like if he can scale down. If we can see that, I think that he can be a high impact role player, and that's a very good outcome for a lot of prospects.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that also goes to the point that I was making earlier, is that they need a daggone point guard, and he wouldn't need so many contested 3-point shots anyway. All right, so we're gonna hit this break, and we're gonna close out with our last two guys, some big guys, and I'm very excited. A lot of people wanting sicko prospects in here. We're gonna get sick with it on the other side of this break, so just hang tight, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back here on the No Ceilings NBA show, here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also on your podcast player of choice. Jam and I, we are joined by Latif Love, and we have talked about a lot so far. We've talked about Latif's draft philosophy, his thoughts on the draft class as a whole. We've talked about Morez Johnson Jr. We just got done talking about Tounde Yessoufou. Now, in the closing segment of the show, we got two guys that we want to talk about. The first one, big man out of Kansas, Flory Bidunga, the sophomore Kansas big man, listed at 6'10", 235 pounds, will be 21 years old come draft night. On the season, averaging about 14 points per game, 9 rebounds, almost 2 assists, almost 3 blocks, over half a steal, with shooting splits of 66, 68. No 3-point numbers really to speak of at all. We won't touch on that. With 1.6 turnovers per game and just over 2 fouls per game. Latif, you were selling the people on the big men, the depth of bigs in this class, and I think that Flory is kind of gone underappreciated, even by myself. You know, I'm typically one of the people who raise my hand first whenever I'm talking about the voice of the many. I will insert myself in there. I have underappreciated Flory Bidunga. He has since moved up in a tier for me that ranges from about 23 to 35. And that's where I'm kind of living with Flory right now. What have you thought about his season so far?
Flory's been the best player in Kansas this season. He is the reason why they've been a top 15-ish.
That's strong.
I mean, Darren.
Is there anybody else on that team, Jam, that might, you know?
I mean, Darren has missed 11 games, and he's been pretty underwhelming for me for 2 months now. Well, since the BYU game, basically. Flory is the reason why they were able to survive without Darren. His rim protection has been great. He's been cutting off the paint for pretty much everybody. He literally locked down AJ DeBansa. Like he was on the perimeter guarding AJ DeBansa. This guy is an extremely versatile defender. He's a really good athlete. Now, he probably is like 6'8", which is unfortunate, but his wingspan is really long. He's a freak athlete, like I said. And one of the things that really improved for him this year was his touch around the rim and his touch overall. He also, his feel has improved as well. He's made a major leap with more responsibility. So we talk about this ability to scale up and scale down. He is scaled up, especially with Darren off the floor, and still been a great defender. Has been more of an offensive option where like posting up, like getting some hooks in there and like some push shots. Like his touch is improved. His free throw percentage, I believe, has also improved. His passing, he showed some flashes. This guy I think he's been an NBA prospect for a few years now. It just hasn't, clicked. all the way, but this year I do think he is a first round pick caliber player. Now he may fall to second because again, so much talent in his class. But I think there is a case for like a lot of bigs to be first round. He's definitely squarely. He's fairly in there. Again, I think he's been the best prospect at Kansas. I do worry about like his size in terms of not only his height but also his weight, because I think that it potentially like bigger centers can get the best of him, and he doesn't have that aspect of his game like Morez does, where like he can play the floor. He probably can't because he can't really like stretch the floor at all, and he doesn't have like that much upside to do it either. But so it's kind of tough with him playing the five, but he kind of reminds me almost of someone like Musa Diabate, who is an excellent backup center. He's played excellent for the Charlotte Hornets this year. The Sheets love him. I think the Sheets are going to love Flory as well because the rebounding, the play finishing, and stuff like that as well. So I think Flory's a great prospect who has gone under discussed this year for his contributions to Kansas being the team they have been, and I think he's been the biggest reason for them. Melvin Castle has been great. Darren has been great most of the time when he's on the floor, but Flory is the reason why that team is as good as it is.
Yeah, and Jam, to the point that Latif said, for the freaks in the sheets out there, I mean, BPM of almost 11, block percentage of almost 10 to go along with the defensive rebound percentage of over 19, offensive rebound of over 11. He's got 69 dunks on the year. The last time I looked, 58 of those coming in the half court. Highly efficient around the rim, cuts well, runs the floor. Like, Jam, I understand. I'm not going to ask you the question that I already know the answer to, right? Like, I'm not going to ask you why he's gone underappreciated or anything like that. But when you're looking at him, do you feel like he's got a really good shot to be a first round big man in this class, and kind of give us the reason behind that?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And so many reasons that Latif's already laid out. What he does is a play finisher, the improved touch around the rim. Just a great tape against AJ that's absolutely going to be on the resume there. So you show this kind of defensive versatility from able to switch, hedge, and recover, whatever you kind of really need him to do, despite being undersized, but he's going to block shots, have that defensive versatility, can do some keeper stuff. I think there's some short roll stuff there that can still be tapped into, but probably the guy that's going to block shots, be an energy big man, great second chance opportunities, be a play finisher. That's an NBA ready role that fits with every single NBA team. Tell me an NBA team that does not want that type of player coming off their bench. And I think Moose is a pretty good comparison. I think he reminds me a lot of Adem Bona as well too. So ever since when he gets the game with Philadelphia, that he makes the impact.
What about a Clint Capella type?
A smaller. The reason I don't go that way because though the measurables aren't there, I think if he had those Clint Capella true big measurables, then he would be not just a no doubt first round. I think that's a lottery guy, to be honest with you. Top 20 lock for sure, but definitely a lottery type of guy if the measurables were more true to a center. But Adem Bona, I think that's what it's going to kind of be closer to. With Bona, he measured, I believe it was 6'8", right around that the NBA Combine, 7'3", nearly 7'4" wingspan. So I think it's going to be very similar to that. He also had a 48 and a half inch vertical as well too. So I think as long as Flory can hit some of those similar measurements and a lot of those measurables and test well at the Combine, I think he's going to be someone that solidifies himself in that first round.
And I think too, and Latif, I'll kick it over to you for any closing thoughts that you have. Something that shows me, and for the stat heads out there, the analytic crew out there, calculator crew, whatever you want to call them, I don't know what the success rate of this, but I just like looking at this. This is something to me that when I look at these numbers, it shows me someone who could be impactful on defense while also playing intelligently. And I love to look at stocks to fouls committed. It's just something that I've looked at for the past few seasons. I love looking at that. The last I looked for Flory, 93 stocks to 61 fouls committed. There's a huge gap in events created defensively while playing smart, intelligent, fundamental basketball and just being an anchor for a team. And I look at stuff like that. That's where I get the Clint Capella impact is the sort of a player for him. Latif, do you have any closing thoughts on Flory before we get to the guy that I know that you were really excited to talk about tonight?
I think that we need more research on the impact of stocks to fouls. I know a lot of people use that. We don't have a lot of data right now that says like fouling too much, like fouling too much or not fouling a lot. It's too much like gray area because if you're not fouling a lot, are you still being impactful as a rim protector? Are you taking chances, to try to protect the rim? So like that, I think that we need a lot more data on that. So people need to do studies on it. But yeah, I think that is very impressive though in its own right to be that high level rim protector. Their defensive field goal percentage with him on and off is ridiculous. Flory is a ridiculous player. It's just is if he able to hold up because someone in the chat here said that Krivas exposed him a bit, which I agree with that. Just Krivas has a more weight on him. He's 7'2", really big guy,
gigantic. Yeah,
that's the guy that needs some love too. I mean, Krivas has already got love, from Vicenci and other people.
Yeah, game theory, Sam Vecini and Bryce Simon, they talk about him all the time. Yeah,
yeah. So that's another guy that could possibly go to the first round as well. So I think though, I'm very confident about him being able to come off the bench and provide 15 to 20 high level minutes off the bench, and that's a very valuable player in the NBA.
Can I ask you guys a quick question?
Yeah,
just going on the chat, I think it's a very good kind of this or that. But would you rather have Flory or Ruben Chinyelu?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it is a really good one. I keep it up, chat. Love it.
I would say, oh, go ahead, Latif. Please go ahead.
I was just saying I saw that question. That was a great question. I agree. Chinyelu might be the best defender in the country, rim protector. And he's also a really great rebounder. He has more size than Flory, I believe, as well. So that's an interesting thing. Yeah, I think that I'm going with Flory because he's shown a little bit more offensively this year than Ruben. And I think that also I'm more impressed with what Flory has done defensively because I think he's been tasked with more. Like he doesn't have those other guys in the front court like a Thomas Hall to help him.
Alex Condon.
Yeah, Alex Condon to help him.
Mike Hanlon.
Yeah, those guys. Chinyelu has like real help in that front court where Bidunga has been one of the best defenders in the country and led Kansas to be one of the best defenders in the country. Pretty much, I want to say by himself. I mean, Melvin Council's a pretty good defender. Bryson Taylor has been fine. Peterson is good when he's on the floor, but he's really closed off the paint and showed that versatility on the perimeter by himself. So I'll go with Bidunga.
And I just trust the mobility too. Like in a NBA space system, I trust Flory to be able to do things on both ends of the floor without being mismatch hunted, as opposed to Chinyelu, who is very impressive. I have Flory in a tier above in terms of big man prospects. So, all right. So speaking of big men coming off the bench and being very impressive for strong stretches, we're going to close the show with the last prospect here. Latif, you wanted to talk about Zvonimir Ivisic, the junior Illinois big man, listed at 7'2", 250 pounds, will be around 22 years old on draft night. Now, I'm going to read some numbers for people who are just now catching up in the draft cycle. The stat line's not going to sound very impressive, okay? So just hang tight. Around 7 points per game, 5 rebounds, less than half of assists, almost 2.5 blocks, almost half a steal, with shooting splits of 53, 33, 65, less than a turnover per game, and 1.4 fouls per game. Latif, when I messaged you and reached out to you to come on the show, and we were talking about players that you like as opposed to like compared to a consensus, one of the first names, if not the first name that you mentioned, was Big Z. And I was super excited because not a player that Jam and I have delved into a lot, probably since the offseason when we were talking about returners and whatnot, things like that. Latif, the floor is yours, man. Like, why is this guy someone that you're so passionate about?
Yeah, man. Big Z is amazing. I think that he's taken a dip recently with the 3-point shooting for sure. But given that, he's still pretty valuable. I mean, he's at a 10.6 box plus minus right now. Earlier in the cycle, I did a query, and I'm not saying he is as good as this one guy at least. But the query was for a player at the time, and this is when his box minus was at 13.2. So it's taken a pretty big dip since then.
Now it's only at 11 or whatever,
Yeah,
not that great.
The query was for players with block percentage over 10, which he is well above that, 14.2 at the time at least. 3-point per 100 possessions over 5. Height at I think that's 6'10". He was shooting 80% at the rim. The only 3 players in history since 2008 to do that was Chet Holmgren and Jay Huff and Zvonimir Ivisic. So this guy, at least earlier when I did that the query, and also some of his time at like Arkansas, Kentucky, is amongst one of the, I want to say he's not one of the best, but he's a pretty incredible 3-point shooter for his size. His rim protection is amazing. So just those two things in conjunction with each other provides value for an NBA team. Now I understand if he's not selected in the first round by NBA team, but I think that he has a shot to provide that because shooting, defense, rebounding, and that's why I think that centers look great on advanced numbers. That's why centers are in high demand in this class and in most classes because their floor is really high. Finn talked about this on the pod when he was on there. Just they impact numbers so well because of the impact they have on advanced analytics with rebounding. They don't really turn the ball over a lot. They finish well at the rim. They high efficient players, so they naturally have a higher floor. When we're talking about the impact on numbers, and so just his ability to stretch the floor, probably play the floor 4 and a 5 potentially in the NBA. I think that his issues is he's a little bit light for 7'2". He's also 7'2". So
he's a big guy. Yeah.
So I think he's like 7'2", 240. So I want to see how well he guards.
Illinois has them listed at 250. So
yeah,
could be a little nice too. Our guy, yeah.
But I think just the combination of rebounding, shooting, and defending is just that valuable for a player. He can pop and roll. Having that versatility in the pick and roll is valuable. And that's helped Keaton Wagler. That's helped Casper Jakuchonis. That helped Rob Dillingham as well, and Reed Shepard when he was at Kentucky. So he's actually had like really good, like 3 solid seasons of per minute production throughout his season, his career in college. And I think that he can do the same thing in the NBA where, again, this is just 15 to 20 minutes a night. And for the price point he's probably going to be at in the NBA, I think that's really good value. I think that I wouldn't mind selecting him at the end of the first round, but if a team takes him in the second round, early second, or mid to late second, I think that's great value. He's not even really on people's radars, but I think he should be because his rim protection, shooting ability, and rebounding ability is just rare for bigs his size, for sure.
And I want to ask you just a real quick question before I kick it over to you, Jam. You say that he's not on people's radar. Do you think that he is more of an unknown prospect at this point, or would you just say that he might be more underappreciated within this class?
I think it's just, probably both. I think he's underappreciated in his class and pretty much unknown. I think his brother actually gets more to shine in NBA draft spaces. And also, Illinois just has so many prospects this year. Wagler, Merkovich. I think Boswell is going to get drafted, where he kind of falls on the radar also because he's coming off the bench. So I think people know about him generally, but they don't know how good he's been for how long he's been. He's been really efficient at the rim for forever. He's been really a good 3-point shooter for his size forever. Really good rebounder for forever. Like, he's been doing this for multiple years. And that's something I value in older prospects where I need them to be productive for year in, year out. If you're older, you got to be productive year in, year out for me to want to draft you, basically.
I think that that's fair. Jam, what do you think of the season that we've seen so far from Big Z?
Yeah, and I'm right there with Latif as far as you want to see older prospects produce, especially at a high level. That's just kind of my thing, no, with Big Z, kind of just to push back a little bit. Yes, he has been productive, but for me as an older prospect, it hasn't been that like high level of production that makes you feel pretty comfortable about the next level, even despite, that stretch big shot blocking that skill set that he has, as a play finisher, whether that's at the rim or from the outside as well too. He's averaging just under 7 points per game and 5 rebounds per game, 2.2 blocks per game. So obviously he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, protecting the rim and showing that type of versatility there at 17 minutes per game. But like I'm just looking to see if he comes back next year, which I'm assuming, him to be a full-time starter, play some heavy minutes. The way things are looking, it looks like that he's someone that could be hopefully close to a double-double next year. I just want to see more of those big man things from him as far as cleaning the glass more, creating second chance opportunities, and this just having more of a just a high level production more consistently. If he was a younger player, like this is freshman year, I think you're projecting a little bit more. But when you're an older prospect, I just want to see just a little bit more of that sustained production. But just to kind of wrap it up, the production is not quite there for what I want, but that skill set there, that profile is incredibly valuable, as Latif mentioned.
And I think too, just to give some context, because there's a lot of people, to your point that you made way earlier in the show, Latif, is that a lot of the analytics that support a lot of people's opinions, not all of them can be publicly accessed, and then even some of the ones that can be a little bit sort of daunting, right? So people might be listening to this and hearing the stat line that I read earlier, then hearing about how awesome Latif is saying that Big Z is, and then hearing Jam say, role usage, taking on more. Right now, usage of less than 17, that's very small, right? I mentioned earlier that he is coming off of the bench for this team. Again, if you're taking an older guy, to your point, Jam, you typically want to see them in a starting role. But what makes him so tantalizing, right, is that last I looked, 70 stocks to 38 fouls committed. Insane right there. Offensive rebound percentage of almost 9. Ranks in the 70th percentile on putbacks. He has a defensive rebounding rate of 22.4 while having a true shooting percentage of 63.1. Shot almost 33% on 10.2 attempted threes per possession. That's wild. He ranks in the 91st percentile in unguarded catch and shoot jumpers. Sort of a smaller sample because, again, the role that he's on, but 50% on catch and shoot threes. That's insane at 7'2". 30 dunks, 21 of those coming in the half court. 99th percentile in at rim efficiency. 100th percentile on non-dunk finishes. You can't get better than that, right? 99th percentile as the roll man, 98th in transition, 90th percentile on cuts. A lot of things that are giant green flags that you want in a big man, but how do you parse through what this role would look like on higher usage? And Latif, I get where you're saying, right, where you're essentially would be drafting him this year to do what he's doing on Illinois this year, right? Like simply just transplanting him from college to doing the exact same role in the NBA. And I think that you could get good value out of that. But then there's also, of course, the human aspect of this too, right? Like why go and get second round draft pick money when I could go back to college and be guaranteed a big NIL bag? And that's what makes this whole scouting process that much more fascinating. But I am so glad, Latif, that you did want to mention him, because he is a curious case study and a guy who is highly impactful, very potent in the role that he's playing. NBA teams are just going to want to see how much production you can get from a guy on a higher end role, if that makes sense, Latif.
No, I definitely agree, and that's a good point about the NIL with how people are coming out. So I definitely think there's a strong chance he goes back. I would say it's unlikely he comes out. I'm just telling him, Big Z, you're good enough. You're good enough to come out this year. But yeah, I would love to see him, like Jam said, with starting role. And if he can keep this efficiency, he can keep this impact in a starting role, that makes me a lot higher on him and a lot more confident in the role he can play in the NBA. That makes NBA teams a lot higher on the role he can play in the NBA. Because I don't think like the appeal of, okay, I want to draft a guy in the second round to bring him off the bench and have him as a bench role isn't that high with NBA teams that can get that free agency or with a earlier draft pick or something like that as well. So I definitely understand you guys' points on that. And I'm waiting to see him show this on a higher stage in higher minutes, because I think he can do it. If he can stay out of foul trouble, if he can keep the turnovers down, because he actually turns the ball over a lot for how much he plays. His turnover ratio is pretty bad, really bad. It has been historically, which is something I look for, not so much in bigs, but I think you do have to have like a baseline level of feel to play in the NBA, obviously. So I'm looking for that to improve as well, and see how much he can handle the physicality of playing the 5, more so than playing the 4 as much as he does with his brother in other contexts of Kentucky and Arkansas.
I like that name. Just real quick, I like that name, Jay Huff, that you brought up with him. Jay Huff was a guy that I really, really liked. I would have drafted him. I thought he...
Wonder why there, Jam. Is there any particular ties to the region or anything? Or?
Hey, man, he is a fellow Wahoo, but, Huff absolutely deserved it as that stretch big shot block, also play finishes, was very famous for the Statue of Liberty type dunks he was always hitting. I remember... was it the oop he caught on Zion, but he dunked on Zion as well, to show the athleticism there as well, too. So I think that is a very, very interesting name, especially if Big Z can kind of get to some of that DHO stuff that Jay Huff showed that he can do, have that little bit of handle is that way, too. But Jay Huff's last year was something I want to see similar from Big Z, and I think he can put up comparable numbers. Now, last year, UVA, at age 23, and I believe next year that'll be the same age for Big Z as well too. But that year, Huff 13 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, 1.7 offensive, blocked 2.6 shots per game, and shot 38% from 3 on 3 attempts per game. And I think that's all really within the realm of possibility for Big Z if he has a starting role next year and the minutes and the usage goes up just a little bit.
I'm just going to say, if him and his brother are going to be starting big men on the same team, go to Stanford, bring back what the Lopez brothers did, all that time ago. That would be a lot of fun to see, especially if Abuko Okori is back on that team. My goodness, that would be
the Morez twins following the footsteps.
Yeah, go to Kansas, do something like that. Come on, we need y'all both to be starting. Shout out David Mirkovic, though; he's having a heck of a season as well. But all right, let's close the book there, guys. Latif, just want to thank you so much for giving us some of your time, man. Thanks for coming on here, giving us some of your insight, helping us through some of these players that, again, we haven't really talked a whole heck of a lot about here on the show. Before we let you out of here, give you an opportunity to tell the people where they can find you, where they can follow your work, hype up that Darius Acuff piece that I read earlier today. That was fantastic. Floor is yours, brother.
You guys can find me on Twitter at Real Latif Love. That's where I post a lot of my thoughts on the draft class. There's gonna be some Bradley stuff on there as well. If you don't really like that, then just ignore that. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And then is Love My Takes on Substack, where I've been posting a lot of my scouting breakdowns. That's where my big board would be. Mock drafts as well would be on there. And I've been trying to not only talk about the top of this class, but also some of the underlying names. I talked about Cameron Carr really early. I talked about Keaton Wagler really early as well. My Darius Acuff piece is probably one of my favorite that I've done. I think it's the longest scouting report I've done. It's around 3,000 words.
A lot of good work in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's one of my most ambitious pieces in terms of combining film and analytics. I literally rewatched every single minute of his season this year because he's the most polarizing player in his class. So with my evaluation, I wanted to make sure I had everything at my display. So that's a piece I'm really proud of. The Ben and Sturts piece on there is one of my first ones. I'm really proud of that one. And
It's
I'm
holding
also
up really well. Sturts is having a heck of a year, man.
I'm also really proud of my Jaden Clayton's piece as well, who hasn't really had the chance to show it this year, but really proud of my work on there so far. I just want to get better. I appreciate you guys for having me on. If you guys ever want to have me on again, I'm definitely down to do it.
For
Love
sure.
in their work, and hopefully I can come on again.
Yeah, man, you're definitely in the rotation now, you know. So, you know, keep your phone ready. All right, so Jam, again, round of applause to Latif. Really
Yeah.
enjoyed the perspective that he brought on the show. You have been on the road as you typically are, and you've been putting up a lot of really good work over at the website, man. So the floor is yours to share what you have done, what the folks have to look forward to in the future.
I appreciate that. First things first, Latif, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Just an incredible mind, a rising contributor, and just a terrific person. So we really appreciate you coming on. And congratulations to you, senior year, man. Enjoy your last year. Lord knows
It's all downhill from here, man.
I miss being on grounds at UVA and everything like that. Every time I get down there, nostalgia just hits me. So definitely enjoy that last time there and keep grinding. But yeah, so as you mentioned, I've been on the road. Was at George Mason St. Bonaventure for a fun A10 battle yesterday. So I'll have some words coming out on Tuesday about that. Also today, actually, guess most people will be listening to this on Monday if you didn't join us live, but have a Kadir Copeland piece out from NC State. Somebody
Awesome
that I
piece
felt like,
too, man.
Thank you, really appreciate that. Just when we talked about the depth of the guard class, and I think he's right there with anybody really once you get into that second round, potentially late first if the shooting holds, and I kind of get into that in the piece as well too. So check that out. And then if all goes well, it's looking like I'll be back on the road this weekend for the final regular season games on Saturday. Should be at UVA Virginia Tech for that rivalry game. I'll keep my I'll keep my cheering aside. I can't be rooting against Virginia Tech out there.
Go
so
be
I'll
a
keep
fan,
that
man.
aside.
Go be a fan. It's okay.
I'm always a fan at Duke games and UVA games. You know, always a fan. So I'll be there Saturday and then closing out at Maryland, getting a chance to see them and Keaton Wagler and that Illinois team. So I'm looking forward to that this weekend. I'll have some words for that as well.
Man, I love it. I love the road warrior that Jam is, and it's always much appreciated because, you know, if you want to be out there, you know, if you want to be seen, you got to get out there. And that's a big part of what we do here at No Ceilings. We're big believers in that. For myself, my February Sleepers of the Month was posted this past weekend, this past Saturday. A lot of fun names who have stood out over the month of February, so go and check that out. Ivan Karchenkov was the kind of leading man of that. I probably will never get to include him in a sleeper piece ever again, so I really wanted to just get that out of there because I bleeping love Ivan Karchenkov. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, this last Thursday I dropped a Jam. You texted me about this, and I really appreciate you catching on. But I dropped a Kristanak Jr. piece, which I titled "Houston's Underground King." There was a lot of Houston rap references in the piece, and I'm glad at least somebody in the world caught on to that. So thank you for that. And I mentioned earlier, but Koa Pete is going to be my featured prospect in my Thursday article this upcoming week. A lot of fun stuff that I haven't done with any other prospect, at least in this draft cycle on this piece. So keep your eyes out for that. But that's going to do it for us here. NoCeilingsNBA.com for all that you would ever want to read about prospects, from the tippy top of the class to some names you ain't even going to hear about for maybe another couple years from now. That's okay. It's all going to be on that site. While I got you here on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I know some of you are not subscribers. Please hit that subscribe button and like the video and all that fun stuff. And again, go check out Latif. He's being nice and saying his handle. I'm going to spell it out for you. It's Latif, Latif Love. Real Latif Love. Go to Twitter and follow him. Outstanding person to follow. But for the rest of our No Ceilings family, thank you all so much for tuning in. We will, and Jam, let's go ahead and share because I got permission to do this. Next week, Keith Smith of the NBA Front Office Show is going to be here on the show. He was on last year, had a really great time. Another one of these recurring guests that we love to bring on, so stay tuned for that. But for my co-host Jam Boozer Hines, for our awesome guest Latif Love, and for the rest of the No Ceilings family, we will catch up with y'all next time. Much love, y'all.